Well, hey there, sweet peas. Welcome back to Friendless. I'm your host, James Avramenko, and this week I'm joined on the show by the incredible Nug Nahrgang. We discuss the pitfalls of artistic communities, taking on our friends' enemies, and the safety practices of performative violence in pro wrestling. All this and so much more. Nug is an incredible guest. I was so lucky to have him on and to chat with him, and I think you're going to love this one, so lean back, get comfy, set your volume at a reasonable level, and enjoy my interview with the one and only Nug Nahrgang here on Friendless. Nug Nahrgang, you are you're someone who I have watched through the years, and when I found out you were going to be my competition at Codenames,
Oh my God.
my heart
What a
just kind of
night.
went. It kind of skipped a beat when I recognized you.
Oh my God. It's just, it is for the nonsense that I've done to be recognized for any of it just seems so weird.
Yeah.
There's a long-standing meme on the internet of the Mustard Man, which is me from a show we shot a jillion years ago in Ottawa. And every now and then it pops up again, or somebody mentions it and it gets a new life again. And I've been recognized at a grocery store at 2:30 in the morning by a stoner. And I'm like, is that the recognition you crave when you get into acting? Is that the recognition I want? Oh,
Maybe
yeah,
it's
cool.
maybe it's one of those things where it's like it's not the thing you wanted, it's the thing you needed,
It's the
or it's
thing
the
I'm
thing you
getting.
deserved, right? Yeah.
It's what I'm getting. So I guess I just make that the thing I want and I'll feel fine.
Yeah. In a way, it's like it's almost been how I've felt about this podcast. Where I remember when I started it, I was like, I don't want this to be my life's work. I don't want this to be the
Right.
thing I'm known for, because it was like initially it was the it was the gimmick of unfriending people, and it was supposed to just be like silly and goofy. And then as the years have gone on, I've been like, oh no, this is I've made this into the thing I want it to be, right? And
Right.
so like if I were to be recognized for it, that would rule, and I've sort of like forced it into being something I'm proud of, right?
Yeah. I'm gonna force myself to be something force me to be proud of the thing I'm doing, and then I'll feel
Well,
good being recognized, right?
and isn't that the work in itself of
It's
like,
the
how do I
hardest work.
validate
It's the
myself, right?
hardest work.
So I want to go deeper into that's the story of the what was it called? I just remember it would air before SmackDown.
It was called Aftermath, and
Aftermath.
it started as a show called Right After Wrestling, which aired right after Raw, so it had the same
Yes.
initials, and it had Jimmy Corderas, Arda Ocal, and Renee Paquette.
Yes.
And then over the years, Renee got pinched by WWE, Arda got pinched by WWE,
Yep.
and Jimmy remained. And the Rogers family was like, well, we have another up and coming sports broadcaster named Jackie Redmond, who had won their Gillette sports broadcaster search.
Yep.
And Renee was a judge on that. And so it was just natural. Let's slide Jackie into that role, and she will continue to do plays of the week. But we need another person. We need an Arda, or we need somebody else. And the story from Renee, when she called me, she got pinched by WWE, and on her way out the door, the boss at Rogers said, wait, do you know anybody who can talk about wrestling on TV? And Renee goes, yeah, Nug. And so then when I went in for my interview, and I mean, I'm still an actor and an improviser and whatever, but I went in for my interview, like I tried to dress nice. I don't know what sports people wear.
Of
And
course.
so I tried to dress nice, and I get into the office, this giant conference room with just me and two executives. And they go, so who's your favorite wrestler? And you know me. So of course I go, oh, well, do you mean like now or like of all time? Because right now I like these guys, but when I was a kid, I liked these guys. And so it's hard to compare. And they were like, well, you have the gig because you know what you're talking about.
Of course, yeah.
And so when I got on the show, I knew that it was wrestling, but we had Jimmy, who was a ref and used to work there.
Yep.
We had Jackie, who was the sports broadcaster and kind of running the talking heads of our panel. And then we would have this fourth chair occasionally that was sometimes Cam Stewart, who used to work for The Score, and he was like a sports betting guy, big, loud, very had a lot of personality.
Yep.
And then we had other guys from the network that they were trying to see, like, are they good on camera or not? We had like a rotating chair.
Right.
And then after a while, we got Santino.
That's what I was watching. And
Yeah.
I remember just being so like, I hadn't really watched wrestling in years. And when I had grown kind of moved away from it, he was kind of coming in with his character, and then to get reintroduced to him, just like talking like just
Like a regular
dude from
human.
Toronto, yeah, yeah,
Stony Creek.
right,
We always joke he's a Mississauga, But anyway, but I quickly realized on the show, like, you have two insiders of like, because Anthony is a more recent insider and Jimmy was there, but Jimmy's been there his first year reffing. He was there driving people around and stuff, but he became a ref in like 1984 or five.
wow,
And so, like, I have two different kinds of insiders plus Jackie.
yeah,
I need to find my spot.
yes, yeah,
And it was easy for me to go, well, I'm the fan. I'll be the fan
yeah,
because I am a fan.
yeah,
But it was also fun to come at it at that angle because everybody else would find, like, Jackie wanted to talk about this.
yeah,
And then Jimmy would, like, what are our wins and fails for the week? Jimmy's win was this. His fail was, I wish this would have went better, or I wish
right,
this went differently, because you can't really crap on the product that your company pays billions of
yeah,
dollars a year to play.
yep, yep,
So anyway, but when it would come around to me, I would naturally go, what's a fourth thing?
yeah,
Because I want the conversation to continue.
yeah,
So whether or not I agreed with it or not, I would go online and see what the fans were saying, and then sort of
yeah,
make that into my version of my opinion, whether I believed it or not. Or I'd sometimes find a way, like, sometimes I would just say somebody tanked an interview or something, like, why are you giving that guy the microphone? That guy sucks. And then I'd
yep,
hear, like, I get it online from people that are
of
like, he's
course,
right. That guy does suck. I can't believe he said that on a product of WWE. And
yeah,
I would always reply with, well, they don't pay me.
yep.
Rogers pays me, and they haven't told me to stop saying this yet. So I'm going to just keep
So
doing
why
it.
not? Yeah. Well, and the thing again, like coming from the sort of like the outside perspective of watching the show and not knowing you at the time, like I appreciated that you weren't trying to like kind of talk like an insider, like I think I
We
often
had two
read
of them.
online. Yeah, well that's just
We
it,
had
right?
two
You
of
you
them.
had that, right?
Not only do we have two of them, but we had two of them. One who had spent years not only working there like Jimmy, but he knows how to toe the line as like when he's criticizing. He's
Yes.
not going to lean too far into getting in trouble with the company and putting our show on the radar and getting us
Yeah.
canceled.
Yeah.
But we also had Anthony Santino, who was new at that and routinely screwed up and routinely
Yeah.
got us mentioned, like, hey guys, tell Anthony to cool it.
Pull back. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I was just playing the part of the fan, like, hey, this guy's great, this guy's dumb. See you next week. Like, that's
Totally.
all I would do.
Totally.
I would try and
Yeah.
just try and make it fun.
Yes. And it's that thing of like, you often see, especially like on the internet, you see, fans who are typing and they're trying to use like the lingo and they're trying to use the like, and it was like that always felt really I've never been comfortable, I'll use some of the terms, but it's like I've never worked in the wrestling industry, so I would never feel like I deserve to use that terminology in a way.
I do. Like, I work independent shows all over the place.
Sure, yeah.
I refuse to use the terminology because it
Sure.
just makes me look like I'm coming in with my insider terms. Hey guys, right
Yeah.
guys, I'm one of you guys. I don't even bother. I
Yeah.
shake a hand, I say hello, I
Mhm.
do what I'm paid to do, and I take off. But I
Mhm.
desperately don't say anything that puts me in the light of, oh, that guy thinks he knows more than he does. I'm like, nope, I
Yes.
don't. I know nothing. I know,
Exactly.
but I don't know anything. So it's
Yeah.
always, I do learn something every time I work a show. I'm like, that's what that's called. Okay, great.
Yeah, yeah, and it's like, oh god, man, I'm trying to think of there's so many different directions I wanna take this conversation, but it's like the thing that, like you say, the thing that I continue to find so fascinating about pro wrestling in general is that it's like there's the product that you see as a fan, and then there's the world behind it,
And
and
that world is bananas.
yeah, yeah, and it and it like and there's this part of me that, like, anytime I find out something new, I'm always like, "That's so interesting," and then there's this part of me that's like, I kinda wanna keep the veneer up because it's the same as, like, Hollywood, it's the same as movies where it's like, yes, it's predetermined, but it's like there's the fun in the suspension of the disbelief, and I kinda
Yeah,
wanna
and,
keep that up.
I just had the wonderful Mark Andrada on my podcast,
Mm,
longtime friend of mine, and he just said this so perfectly the other night. He said, "There's something lovely about sitting in the room where you're watching two men pretend to fight each other,
yep.
and all of us are pretending that that's real together."
Yes. Yeah.
And that's really it. RJ also, when he does stand up, is like, wrestling is Santa. Shut up. Don't
Yeah.
ruin it. Don't ruin it for the people who believe in it. Just keep your mouth shut. It's
Yep.
great that you know, but you're going
Mhm.
to wreck it.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so Now when I watch it, it is like a giant, like it is like watching a movie, but it's
Yeah,
happening right in front of you, and there's no second takes,
exactly.
and it's mostly stunts,
Yep.
and none of them are good at acting, and only some of them are good at the stunts.
Yep.
So it's
Yep.
always something different. It's
Yep.
always something weird and different, but
Mhm.
it's a blast. It's always a blast.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I always equate it to it's like it's my favorite version of it's like my favorite type of theater.
It's
Like
yeah,
it's the best
and
theater in the world,
yeah,
right?
it's lie. And I was explaining it to some actors the other night. You know, if you're on a regular proscenium stage and we're
Hmm.
fighting,
Hmm.
uh, if I'm going to punch you, your back is to the audience, and I punch you, and I miss you by a country mile, but you sell that punch like I did punch you, and the crowd goes, "Oh!" We used to do it in Evil Dead all the time. I hit a
Yes.
guy in the face with a shotgun, but I was a mile away from him. But in wrestling, that audience isn't that far away. They're much
Exactly.
closer, and they're on all sides.
Yep.
So these guys have trained not just to wrestle and, sports entertain, but also
Mhm.
like, how far can I throw my hand out? I
Yeah.
know how far away somebody is, and I will put my fist will land on their cheek, but it will not.
Yeah.
And if there's something amazing about if somebody, it's a show about hurting people to win a match, but if I hurt you, I've done it wrong.
Exactly. It's
It's a
magic.
lot of pretending.
Yep. Yep. Um. So we're going to be able to talk a lot of wrestling today, and I
Sure.
think I think I think I want to swing away from it for a little bit, just to give some of my less wrestling inclined
We'll
listeners
get
a
back to it, and
breather.
if we do talk about it, we'll make it very friendly to people who don't know what's going on.
Bingo, bingo. But I wanna kick things off with for listeners who may not be familiar with your work, I'm wondering if you could answer a very simple question of
100%.
who the hell are you?
Oh, I'm just a kid from small town Ontario who lucked his way into being on TV for a few things.
Hell yeah.
I was in a very small town, fabulous Clinton, Ontario, which it
Mm.
says population 2,500 on the sign. Generous. And then it's not the middle of nowhere, but you can see it from the front porch of my old house. Uh, and then I applied to all these universities, and an older friend of mine who went to York was like, "Go to York. York's your place." And I was like, "Okay."
Mm.
I applied and didn't get in, and then I got a late acceptance letter to York and the letter. This was mail, people, actual mail, and I got a letter that said reply by the day I got the mail, and I was like, "Oh,
Oh,
that's where I want
fuck.
to go."
Yep.
We called, sorted it all out, drove to Toronto, figured out everything, and then this older friend of mine was like, claim you cannot move in on move in weekend, that you have to move in a week early, and then uh walk around the campus and know where everything is, and then when everybody moves in, you're the guy who knows where everything is. And I was like, "Oh, cool."
Yeah.
And I did that, and it was awesome. So but I had done after school plays all through high school, and then when I got to York, I was an English major because my small town drama program ended at grade 11. I was at a pub one night drinking with some kids, and I was like, "Hey, what are you guys taking for school?" And they're like, "Theater." And I went, "No, but for school." And they said theater, and I was like, I missed my calling. I could have done this.
Yeah.
So there was in the building. I was in Vanier residence, was attached to Vanier College, which was like a series of classrooms and offices. But there was Vanier College Productions, which was like an after school theater program, and I auditioned. And at my audition, the director was like, "Can you come back Wednesday?" And I was like, "There's more of this." I didn't realize it was a callback. I didn't know anything. Um, I got to the callback with he was casting 10 people, 5 guys, 5 girls, and the rule for the company was if you were in the show the year before, you got an automatic callback.
Hmm.
But the year before, they had 30 people in the show. So we did the callback, and there were 30 other people on
On top of
top of
all
the
the new.
40 people that he called back or whatever, that were all like high-fiving, shaking hands, saying hi to the director, like they all knew each other. And I was sitting beside this other guy, and I went, "Do you know any of these fucking people?" And he goes, "No." And I
No
went,
way. Yeah.
"Hi, I'm Nug." And he's like, "I'm John." Great. And so we just stuck together. Like anytime we were like, he wanted to see us read, he wanted to see this, we just changed up all the combinations. And by the end of it, me and this John guy were beside each other with these 10 other people, and he just had us change positions and stand up, sit down. "Okay, thanks." And then we saw our names posted on the list, and John's name was on that list. And I was like,
Fuck yeah.
"Cool, I have a friend, you
Yep.
know?" And that's John Catucci from the Food Network.
Hey.
um,
Okay.
who I was in his wedding party. He was in my wedding party. We've never stopped. We still text every day,
Amazing.
but it's like you're already alienated
Yep.
because I'm from a small town. These are all city kids. I didn't know I could take theater. I'm going after school. Now here's a room full of people who all know each other, and I'm like,
Yep.
fuck. And I try and cling to another guy who's in the same spot as me.
Yeah.
But it was that company. That company got me the training, which it's so funny because I always say that company is very much, you're the lead. Congratulations. Here's a paintbrush and a hammer we need to set by Thursday, and you're sewing your own costume. So I learned how to do the lights. I learned how to do sound. I learned how to do front of house. I learned how to paint. I learned how to build. I did everything. I directed. I stage managed. You name it, produced. I did all sorts of stuff. But I also acted in the plays, was in the improv company, wrote sketch, and then from that started doing sketch comedy with a bunch of friends. And then one of our alumni started producing a sketch show downtown at the old Tim Sims Playhouse, which was inside the Second City Theater at the time. And he just knew us from doing stuff up at York. So pretty soon, these 3 sketch troupes that came out of York were all going downtown and taking turns opening for each other on this show and being seen by more of the Toronto community. And from that, I got an audition for Second City, and they had me improvise, which, I mean, I just knew it as making stuff up. But I'm out auditioning for Second City, and they want us... I told this story just the other day, how at the audition, at the very end of it, like I was jumping in and making stuff up. That was what I know about improv.
Yeah.
And they have us do a musical thing. And I can sing in the shower. I've done musicals before, but it's not like I don't list it on the top 20 things.
You're not leading with it. Yeah.
I'm certainly not. It's in the appendix of the book. So anyway, I remember going like, my brain was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'll watch these people do it. There's only 6 of us. By the time the 5th guy walks out, my English major storytelling brain goes, oh, fuck, I'm closing this.
Yeah.
Like I have to end the scene and sing and rhyme because these people are all rhyming. So I remember doing it on a dick joke and being mortified, and then going back to York to where I was directing the improv company, and all my students were like, how'd it go? And I went, I closed on a rhyming singing dick joke, and they all go, oh no. And I was like, I know. And then the next thing you know, I'm understudying for Second City, and my era was I got in the touring company and I was understudying, but I understudied like I was in the era of, well, these 2 look alike and these 2 look alike, so I guess Nug's going to understudy Sandy Jobin Bevins, who is 6'3" and very handsome. And I'm like, that is not this guy. And so when I did understudy, the scenes took on a whole different, like they were laughing for completely different reasons,
Of course,
which we were all very cognizant of. And then I kept doing sketch on the side, and then I got taken out to do Evil Dead the musical and got back into the touring company and left again to do Evil Dead for 2 years, and then did Cannibal the musical and Aftermath at the same time. Then we did Night of the Living Dead live, and like it's just absolute nonsense.
Yeah.
Podcasting I always wanted to do on the side, so I did a podcast for a long time with Paul Bates and Lee Smart from Second City. We improvised and then added sound effects and music to make it sound like an old-time radio show. We did that for ages. I think there's 10 seasons of that up on the internet still. But that was editing. For anybody in podcasting, do this. Turn a mic on and go. Don't do what we did. It was too much.
Literally.
Even for mine, where I'm like, even for my podcast, $1 Words, I'm like, I have a theme song.
Yeah.
Why do I do that? That's just taking up time. Like, and I have to do it every week.
Oh my God. This, like, I have done so much work to do as little work as I can.
I set up a framework and just save it, and then I just drop stuff in, but I still have to edit. And it's like,
and even that is just like, kill me. Just please end my suffering.
I remember so many people going, well, I'll edit for you.
Yeah.
Because when I used to edit Illusionoid with Paul and Lee, I was like, no, because I've had another person edit when I'm in the room.
Yeah.
And I'll go, no, back up. I don't change that. And like, that's not fun for that person.
Yeah.
So I'll just take it on. And so I could get an episode out. By the end of it, I could crank one out in like 2.5 or 3 hours.
Yeah.
But when I first started, it was like 5-6 hours.
Easy.
I also, in my travels of working for Second City, I worked on the cruise ships. And when you got off the cruise ship, you met people from other cruise ships, and you'd swap movies on hard drives so you could watch something all week.
Yeah.
And from that, I lucked into like 50 gigs of old radio sound effects. And so
Oh
my brain
yeah.
is like, oh, I need a car door slamming. Well, here's the file of 400 makes of car
Yep.
door slamming. And I'm like, I just want one. I want one that sounds like a car door.
Oh my god, a friend of mine in Saskatoon had a very similar hard drive that he shared with me. It was, like a terabyte of sounds, and it's like,
Phenomenal.
yeah, and it's like it's this incredible resource that I'm so glad I have, and at the same time too, have never really even scratched the surface of, because just like you say, you're like, I need a phone ringing, and then it's like, here's 1,000 phones ringing, and I
And then
just
you just
can't.
want to close the file.
Exactly,
I'm
exactly. It's like,
overwhelmed.
you know what? I think I'm not gonna make this show. Actually, is
I
the
started, by the end, I had started, if I knew I needed a phone ringing, let's say, I would have at some point listened to 20 of them,
Mm,
of the 400, and went, that's a good one. And then there's a way to mark it, like in
right.
your little file, mark it with a color. So
Yeah.
then later on, when I went to get a phone, I'm like, oh, okay, good. That's a good one.
Done.
I already
Exactly.
approve that.
Yes. Yeah. And that feels. I mean, that's a really good workaround. That's a good, like, almost like an ADHD brain hack thing of like do the work when it doesn't feel like work.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
When you have the capacity and you have the focus and you have
But
the
then, like,
ability.
I'm focused and I'm in, and I'm like, fuck, I got to go look for a phone ring. Then
Yeah.
I go, and previous me has already approved this one. I go, ah, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks, buddy.
Exactly. Yes. Yes. That's it's self love right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So, oh my god, you have so much, like, I'm sure you have endless stories about every single thing you just brought up, and I want
Oh,
to
yeah,
ask you about
absolutely.
all of it.
Sure.
I want to circle back though, because kind of thinking on the concept of like friends, and I think friends within the arts is a really interesting kind of experience for me.
Yes. Yes.
And when you talked about, like, because there's the hell that is the audition route, like waiting room,
Yeah.
like when there's all the people, and there's that like schmoozy
We're
pressure,
all
right?
trying to get the same job, and we're also all not trying to talk about that we're all competing for the same job. So
Exactly.
I do find it, I mean, other than the people I know, when you walk in and go, oh,
Yeah.
fuck, you're going to
Yeah.
get it, that kind of thing. There is a room full of people who are fake schmoozing you
Yeah. And I
because
and
they feel they have to make conversation because it's an awkward
exactly.
moment. And I would
Exactly.
prefer not talking at all.
Just don't that's just it. It's like, I would always rather somebody, there's this thing, I hear pop up every now and then, like, TikTok, places like that, where it's like there's a difference between being kind and being nice, and like
Yes.
kindness is when you are willing to be not nice, right? Nice is fake.
Yeah.
Kindness is like, I love myself first, so sometimes I'm not going to be nice, right? And I
No.
think the audition rooms, in my experience, usually have a lot of nice to it,
Yes.
and I
And
find
that
that
nice
so
is
scary.
overtly fake.
Oh
I find
yeah,
it extremely phony.
yeah,
Like, you know why we're here. We're all trying to get the same gig.
exactly,
So when it gets down
exactly,
to three of us, it's one of the three of us. Congratulations to one of the three of us.
yeah.
But
And there's a way. Oh,
I've
sorry.
also tried to explain to my wife, like when we first started dating, she's like, she's a teacher. So she's like, tell me about what you did today. I'm like, oh, I went to an audition. And she's like, oh, and what happened? And I go, I, I went to the audition and I came home. And she's like,
Yeah,
well, when do you find out? And I go, possibly never. Like,
yeah,
I
yeah,
don't know how to explain this to you unless
yeah.
I put it in terms you understand. And I go, it's a job interview that I will never hear
Nope.
about unless I got the job. And if I don't get the job, I'll never hear why.
Yes.
And repeat that forever.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So she's like, how do you do it? And I go, I don't know.
It's a sickness. It's an absolute
It's
sickness.
a weird thing to be an actor because you have to have a thin skin, but you also have to have the thickest skin possible.
Yeah, because you've got to keep yourself open, right? It's
Yeah.
I'm constantly telling, I these days I teach tech students. I teach like soft skills and team management and stuff. But I often use my experience in theater to sort of like illustrate points, and I always come back to something an old theater teacher of mine said, where he would say, like, you can't get the part without walking through the right door. And so
Yes.
your job is just to continually walk through doors
Yeah.
until you found the right one. And
Yeah.
and the problem with it is that you're going to walk through 100 doors before you ever even get a glimpse of the right one,
Yeah.
so it's an exercise in madness.
I've had some great successes followed by some absolute valleys, peaks
Oh
and
yeah.
valleys.
Oh yeah.
And some things that were like, oh, this is it, this is the big one, and then it just been ripped away.
Yeah.
And so you can never like, I get excited because I have a callback, and my wife will be like, "Oh, that's good. Callback's good." And I go, "Yes, but I'm not. I don't even think I have the gig until I'm on set. Like even
Oh, fully.
driving, I could be. I know I could show up, and they're like, "Nah, turn around."
Yeah. Yeah.
So until I'm sitting or on, if I'm in the trailer, I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm still not. This is nope. They're
Mm-hmm.
going to tell me to go home any minute now. And then when I get on set and we start shooting, I'm like, okay, I'm actually, because they could
100.
send you home anytime.
Oh, easily, and shit changes on the whim. You know so coming back to like the story of meeting John. I think that these are one of those. That's such a beautiful illustration of like there's because I think that that is the sort of almost the counter energy that where it's like you yes you are in competition with these people, but you also are in community with them. Because
Yes, we're
you're
all supposed to be
collectively.
part of a community.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
And so this is why like I think the arts become such a fascinating case study for me about the things that I try to discuss on the show of like, it's a especially something like a performing arts it's a singular personal experience, and yet you cannot create it without a community,
And
right?
that's and having, the improvisers are the record collectors of comedy. We read all the
Mhm.
books, we read, we do all the research. um
Yes.
Taking some training over the years with some big name improv gurus, you learn like, I'm out there on stage, and I still do this even when I audition. uh I'm out there on stage, and I'm just trying to make my scene partner look like $1,000,000.
Yes.
And I do that because I hope they're doing that for me.
Yes.
And if we're not doing that for each other, what the fuck are we doing out there?
Yeah.
And so even in the read, even with someone, a cold reader, and I've got a script or whatever, I'm still trying to make them look good,
Give.
because then this will look better. This
Mhm.
will be more natural and actually
Mhm.
be a scene. It's a sickness.
Well, it's
That
it's like
Saturday Night Live is like, which is I had an audition years and years ago for Saturday Night Live, and I was boggled. My mind was boggled by the fact that I was like, I'm going on a show which is historically talked about the cast, the group, the things we create, and you want me to audition by doing 4 minutes by myself. I
right.
don't understand what's happening. And it bothered me the whole time I was there. It's like the
Yeah.
dream gig, the dream audition of my entire life. And I'm like totally distracted by, you just want to see what I can do on my own, and then
Yeah.
put me in a room full of people who are trying to do things on their own with the appearance of we're all in a community together.
But see, this is so. This is where my brain was going, and I'm so glad you brought that up because it's like it's this it's this baseline philosophy I have that's like capitalism has been the number one enemy of art since its inception, right?
Hmm.
Because those are the attitudes of someone who thinks fuck you, I got to get mine, right? And that's how we close our minds from art is you're in an audition and you're like, I have to be the one to get it because I have to pay my rent.
Yes.
It can't be about how can I help this art be as good as it can be. It's how can I pay my rent? How can I eat? Fuck the other guy.
Yes.
And
Yes.
and that just closes us off from. And I know that this is very like wooey, touchy feely, but it's like I think that to live the artist life, you know, in its ideal, would be to be able to divest yourself from capitalism, right?
The idea that you would have a nest egg provided to you by someone so that you wouldn't have to worry about anything. You go out and
Yeah,
make the art you need to make, as opposed to the art you need to make to eat.
exactly. We need more
There's
patrons in this world. We need
yes,
them. We need the Medicis to
be
come back
sponsored. Put your name on my T-shirt. I will wear that T-shirt everywhere.
everywhere.
Let me just say this right now: Diet Coke, I'm your guy.
Right?
Um,
I'll get a tattoo. I don't give a fuck.
I'm gonna put it on my fucking forehead. I don't care.
Yes, yes.
Um, yeah. Second City, my old stage, or not my stage manager, my old music director at Second City is a jazz musician, Jim Clayton, a fabulous, fabulous jazz musician. And he, one night I had done something in the improv set that was, funny to me.
Sure.
Just a joke or whatever, funny to me, or I did something in a scene that was funny to me, and the crowd didn't like it at Second City, and I was like, fuck them. And then Jim came over and went, "Hey, man." And he, jazz musician, says, "Hey, man." And I go, "What's up?" And he goes, "This is a show that audience paid $40 to see.
Yeah.
And it's the audience that can afford to pay $40 for a ticket. If you want to do that kind of shit, do it at the Rivoli where you sell tickets for $5.
Yeah.
Know who your audience is all the time." And I was like, oh, yeah, this is the job.
That's it.
And so,
Yes.
like, it's not don't do what you want to do, but just know who you're doing it for. So then
Exactly.
I can go to Second City and I don't feel bad about memorizing old sketches and doing the best ofs and understudying something that I didn't write because I'm getting paid to do it. But then on the side, I can still do my own sketch, my own improv, whatever, for far less pay, but I'm doing the thing I want to do.
Yeah, yeah, and it's finding those. I think where the pressure comes in is those. So I'm somebody who's like, because of all this network and this world and this pressure and the system we're in, I usually default to like just go get a job, and then
Yes.
find ways to make your art outside of it by
Mhm.
itself, right? Because I think that ends up being, if we're in a system where we have to have a job, which like, yeah, I wish that wasn't the case, but tough shit,
Yeah.
I find it much more beneficial to like remove yourself from the art world, than
Yeah.
and then bring yourself back to it when you have something to say.
I'm finding ways to use what I've learned in the art world and improv and theater and everything to help other people in the wrestling world. Like,
Yeah.
I'm teaching improv to wrestlers, or I'm doing sitting down doing one-on-one character, like an hour of sitting down with a guy going,
Mhm.
you have everything in the ring and you work on that all the time, and you go to the gym and you work on that all the time, but your promos stink. You do no
Mhm.
work on that
Mhm.
microphone. Let's sit down and work on this so that it's idiot proof and you can get signed.
Yes.
And so I ran into um, a guy in my neighborhood. He literally lives around the corner from me up here, and he used to wrestle for WWE. He was a jobber for years. He was enhancement talent for the
Yep.
nicest. He was the guy that, like King Kong Bundy, to quote K. Trevor Wilson's stand up, King Kong Bundy on his way to the ring, 444 pounds, monster coming down the ring, and his opponent already in the ring,
Yep.
no music, Scott.
Yeah.
And so this guy was Scott, and you knew Scott was
Yep.
going to get murdered.
Yep.
But this guy, when the wrestlers were on tour back in the 80s, um, he would come in and they'd tape 4 weeks worth of superstars in a night, and he would change singlets 4 times and go out and lose 4 times,
Yep.
but he'd make more money that night than Hulk Hogan would,
Yeah.
because Hogan's just on tour for the day. This guy came in and lost 4 times and took 4 brutal finishers from people,
Mhm. Mhm.
but he made a lot of money, but he's got a business mind. And
Yep.
so when he saw me, he was like, you know what you got to do? Take your improv skills, teach these people how to talk on a microphone, charge them X amount of money for a one-on-one, sit down and get these kids signed because they all need your
Yeah.
help. And I went,
Yeah.
that's a good idea. So I've started doing it, and I'm only offering it to people I know that just need that
Yeah.
extra little nudge. And
Yeah.
so I've started calling people, and I had helped a couple of guys get signed here and there. And so I said, if I start doing this, can I call on you for a referral or
Fuck
like a,
yeah.
testimonial? And they're like, absolutely. So I'm like, okay, so this isn't ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I'm not charging a ridiculous amount of money, but I do feel fulfilled using what I've learned to help other people.
Mhm. Mhm. God, that's
Trying,
amazing. You know,
trying.
right? And the fact that there's people like you out there doing this work, I think, is really invaluable for the industry because w- I have friends who will watch wrestling and will be texting about it, and one of the number one like things we all notice because we're all theater kids, we're always like, just release that jaw, just like just loosen up a little, like
For
work
me,
on
the
those
most
vocal
basic thing
cords,
is my most basic thing is you don't need to yell. You're
Yeah.
holding a microphone that amplifies your
Exactly.
voice.
Yes.
Save your voice.
Yes. I mean, that's why Jake the Snake was magic,
Oh
he
my
just
God,
he
because
just
he
would
was not like
whisper,
anybody else.
Yeah. But and you can see this is such a spin away. This is just but it's like it's the one of the things I always notice is when somebody feels lost, they think they have to match the energy by like overdoing it to sort of keep up. But then you see them lose their train of thought. And so
Yeah.
now they're just yelling nonsense,
Well, and also when in doubt and you truly don't know what to say, guy or girl, close your promo by calling the other person bitch.
Right?
That will set that crowd hears that word and goes, "Oh," but as soon as
Yeah.
I hear it, I go, "Oh, you don't know what
Yeah.
you're saying."
Exactly. Thank
You
you for
if but if you don't believe what you're saying, I don't believe what you're saying, and that's bad. Yeah, because I know you're a wrestling fan.
Mhm.
So I wrote down questions that I thought you could be able to answer, and
I
and
love
I
it.
thought maybe I might actually know the answer to this. So like where
Ooh.
I'll ask you, you'll answer, and I'll go actually yes or no.
Oh, I
So
love this.
so my first one is, which I think is, currently,
Yeah.
WWE, AEW, whatever, TNA,
Yeah.
whatever, which wrestler out there right now do you think could be your friend?
Oh, okay. Could
Based
be.
on, I mean, you could based on TV, you could based on what you know about them behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Who is out there that you think could be your friend?
Oh, fuck, that's such a good question because there's okay, so my brain goes into two different directions. The kind of person who I think could be versus the kind of person I wish would be, right?
Both
You know?
valid, both
Right?
valid. Yes.
I think could be friends. I think like Chuck Taylor, I think best friends. I think that whole group, I think they really just, the whole long-term story of Chuck wanting to say shit on TV, like that's exactly my kind of humor,
Right.
you know?
Right.
The like, what are we gonna do today? We're gonna cheat, like
Mm.
this, like I just think that was magic. They come across as such charming people, and I think we would definitely get along. The person or the two people who I would wish so badly would be my friends are Eddie Kingston and Will Ospreay. Um, because they both I have such a deep respect for them both because not only because they're incredible performers, but because they talk so openly about their mental health
Yes.
whilst still maintaining a type of masculinity that very easily slips into toxicity, but they maintain like a healthy performance of like a confident masculinity that I really,
Yeah.
really respond to,
Now, what's great here is that I have met Eddie Kingston and worked the show
Mm,
with him, and I can say, yeah, Eddie's super chill,
yeah.
but very open. And
Yeah.
so, my first experience meeting him was my secret code word in the wrestling community is to drop that RJ's my friend,
Right.
and that puts wrestlers on the like, oh, this guy's okay,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that, like just dropping that lets them know that I'm a halfway decent human being because RJ doesn't suffer assholes very much.
Yes. Yep.
And so when I met Eddie, I said, I'm saying hi from RJ City. He's a friend of mine. And he goes, fuck that guy. And I go, 100%. And he goes, all right. Like it was that kind of thing. But Eddie will sit there after the show and just shoot the shit about everything,
Yeah.
not to belittle him or make it sound funny, but he will talk about everything that's wrong with him.
Yeah.
And you're just like, oh, wow. Yeah, me too. Like a lot of,
Yeah.
so you
Well, it
get a
was
lot of,
that that
connections with these guys.
that article he wrote a
Yes.
couple years ago. Like I not only reading it like just wept, but it gave voice to things that I had been struggling with in myself, and it gave voice to just a new, not only just understanding of him, but an understanding of myself by hearing his experiences framed the way he framed them.
He and because he's not he's not trained,
Yeah,
like he's not versed in
it's
the
authentic.
jargon of it's very authentic, and it's
Mhm.
and it's someone talking about it in such an authentic way that it hits home with a lot of people,
Yeah,
and also like hits home in a way of like, oh, that's me, but then really hits home because of how rough it is, and you're like,
yeah,
oh, I'm not by myself. If this guy's fucked up, I can be fucked up too. Or if this guy has
exactly.
problems, I can have problems too. He's overcoming them very slowly. I can do that too.
Exactly, and I think, and that spins me, the same thing with Will Ospreay. Will Ospreay being so open about his ADHD, about his dyslexia, just, I have such a respect and a love for people who are willing to be courageous about talking
Yeah,
about their mental health in public because it's
yeah,
so easy to be stigmatized, it's so easy to be prejudged, it's so easy to be misunderstood, misconstrued, all the fucking negatives, and to have a platform at the level that they do and to speak so confidently and so openly about that, I think is so helpful for
yeah,
everyone else who, they always talk like on Twitter, they always say things like, you know, uh, you know, that person you're tweeting something shitty at isn't going to see it, but your friend will, and it's that thing of like when you it's the reverse of that, where it's like when the person on the platform is talking about it, the people who would be shitty about it are seeing that now and
yeah.
hopefully
I also
considering it.
like we've socially, I think, especially Pride Month just started for
Mm,
June,
mhm.
and I see all the posts from like AEW. I follow DC Comics online because I'm a
Yep.
nerd, and all the Pride posts go up, and the amount of negative
Yeah.
comments this year has gone down.
Yes.
It is less than previous years,
Hmm.
and it's a combination of you're just saying the same shit. We're all going to tune you out.
Yeah.
But also saying that stuff is kind of frowned upon even more now. It's getting more
Yeah.
and more frowned upon.
Yeah.
And I don't want, if I was you commenting this horrible shit on these pride posts, your friends are seeing it. Now
Yeah.
your friends know you're a fucking idiot too.
Exactly.
And my father used to say, he used to go a long way around it, but keeping your mouth shut is free.
Mm-hmm.
Costs nothing. Saying nothing costs nothing.
Yep.
And, or as my dad used to say, no one would know how fucking stupid you are if you didn't open your mouth. And so
Exactly.
like that, and then the fancy version is Mark Twain or who said, it is better to keep one's stupidity to themselves than
Yes.
to open one's mouth and erase all doubt.
Yes. Yes. And I was thinking that exact quote because it nails it. It's like you might as well just shut the fuck up and and leave the mystery.
In improv, Del Close always taught go with your third thought, which I always thought was great because the improviser in you goes, oh, the first thing that comes to my mind, and that first thing is very while genuine, it's coming from a place
Surface.
of got to be funny. It's
Yeah.
coming from very deep inside or whatever, and maybe it's only funny to me. That second thing is only an edit of the
Yes.
first thing, and then the third one is where you find common ground and
Yeah.
something people can relate to. So it's a very much like a Rolodex in your head of like, haha, nope, yes, I'm going to
There we
say that
go.
third thing.
Oh, that's a beautiful tip. I love
Say
that.
that third thing, man. And even
Yeah.
in conversation, like, not that we argue a ton, but in arguments with my wife,
Sure.
what I want to say is this. Nope, I'm going to say it this way. Nope, that's just an edit of the first thing that's going to get you in trouble. Try a third thing that
Yeah.
helps you find common ground.
Yeah. Well, and especially in relationships, it's like you're not, remembering that you're not fighting against each other. You're fighting, you're fighting together. And so
Look, we
finding
have
a way
these
to
rings on
communicate
our
that.
fingers. These rings
Exactly.
said we would do this forever.
Yeah.
So you're fucking stuck with me. Let's figure out a way to do this forever.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so those all this kind of miasma is really steering me towards. I think I want to ask one of the like core questions of the show
Please.
about, obviously the show circles around the questions of friendship, connection, and
Right.
these kinds of things, and the question of what to you does it mean to be a friend is purposefully misleading, right? And it's purposely like said very simply, but I think what's so fascinating for me personally is how differently that can be interpreted by everyone, right?
Yeah.
And so yeah, I guess I'll put that to you to kick it off. Is to you, what is a friend?
I don't, I have, I guess I have a lot of different phases of my life, and I have friends from every one of those parts of my life.
Yeah.
Like I still have friends. I still have a couple friends that I met in grade 5 when I moved to Clinton.
How do you do that?
But we keep in touch.
Yeah.
I've met kids. We've gotten, whenever I'm back home, I give them a call or I shoot a text every now and then. We just keep in touch.
Yeah.
But there are 2 people that I met in the summer of 1985 that I still talk to.
Wow.
Not everybody,
Of course.
because there was a lot of dicks in that neighborhood, but I keep in touch with a few.
Yeah.
And then I have other acquaintances from that time.
Yep.
And then from my days at York, I have some really good friends and a bunch of acquaintances. And then in
Yep.
the world of wrestling, I have some good friends and then a ton of acquaintances.
Of course.
They're not the people I text on a regular basis, and I don't need you to be there all the time. Even if you're my friend, even if you're one of my closest friends, I don't need you to be there all the time. But when I have some problems and I need to talk through something, you're going to be the person I talk it through with, because you know me and I know you, and we're not going to bullshit each other. I wrote sketches for a long time with a group of people who we all knew each other for so long and so well that when a sketch came across we needed to edit, somebody going, no, that's bullshit, cut that out, that doesn't work, move it here, and we're like, great, because we would all edit together.
Yeah.
But then when I go to work with other people and they're like, here's a sketch I wrote, and I'm like, well, I love the bottom half of this, but that middle part shit, move that bottom to the middle, and now we've got a shorter sketch that works. They're like, hey, my child,
Yeah.
and I'm
Yeah.
like, no, I'm not being mean.
But they
Because
haven't built that rapport.
we
Or
don't
the
have that
trust.
rapport.
Yeah.
And so when you're my friend, I trust you enough to be able to say whatever the fuck I want. And you're not going to come down on me about it. And you're also not going to be offended by it.
Mm-hmm.
But also you're going to let me say it.
Yeah.
I might have an opinion on somebody and you totally disagree, but you're still going to let me say it. And then you're going to say your piece and I'm going to go, oh, cool. Okay. We can find common ground on this.
Yeah.
But a lot of people are like, a friend helps you move a body. Hilarious,
Right.
guys. It's hilarious. I, I, I would never put my friend through moving a body.
Right.
I would hire some kid. I'd pay a fucking grade 10 kid $5 to
Yeah.
come help me move a body.
Yep.
And never see him again. I don't want to put my friend through. If I'm a true friend, you are not helping me move a body.
Right?
I'm
Yeah,
not, I'm sorry.
a friend doesn't implicate you in a felony. Like, come on,
Yeah.
like
Yeah, I don't want a partner in crime. I want someone to bail me out. I don't
yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't want somebody in there with me. I want somebody on the outside helping me get the fuck out.
Do you you raise a really interesting kind of nuance in the language of the difference between like a friend and an acquaintance, and I wonder, me personally, I've really thought a lot recently that like the pandemic kind of killed the acquaintance class, like because of the way we pared stuff down.
Yeah.
But I'm very curious. Feel free to elaborate on that. But also, I'm curious how you differentiate what a friend and an acquaintance is, or if you have specifics.
There are people who I run into only at an improv show. I go to an
Mhm.
improv show and I only see them there.
Yeah.
I did a show recently and I saw improvisers who are friends, but I haven't seen in 10 years. They didn't even know I got married. They didn't know I had a kid.
Yeah.
Like it's like, so my thing is, if you didn't know that I got married or that I had a kid, we're probably not that good of friends.
Yeah.
But but we're still friendly.
Mhm.
And if I have to hop up on stage with you, I can, and I try, and I
Mhm.
know you, and we're fine. But acquaintances are just these, random people that are. When I go to a wrestling show, half the crowd are acquaintances. They all know me. They're
Yes.
like, "Hey, Nug," I'm like, "Hey, what's up?" And I know them, but it's not like we talk at the end of the day. Remember, I'm an old man. Remember back before the internet and back before cell phones, when you finished school at 3:30 and you went home, you called your friends. You
Yeah.
hung out with your friends. You weren't forced to hang out with 1,500, however many other people at the school.
Yeah.
You just hung out with your friends or you talked to your friends. When I
Yeah.
went out at lunch, me and my 3 or 4 friends would go to the same coffee shop, smoke cigarettes, drink coffee, get our homework done, and come back for the second half of school.
Yep.
Those were my friends. Not the people I was in class with, not the people who was next to me at the locker, not the people who I had to suffer through sitting next to
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
assemblies or gym class or whatever. At the end of the day at 3:30, I went home and then I talked to my 3 or 4 friends.
Yeah.
And I miss those days so much because
Man.
all of everybody's shit is up on Facebook and we all think we're friends, or I've seen your, and people are only posting the fucking greatest hits on Instagram, and that's
Mhm.
bullshit. So it's cool to keep track of everybody, but that doesn't mean you're friends.
That's just it, and I think that that's where one of my own internal confusions comes into play, right? Is that, you know, so for me, I've done lots of exploration of my mental health and my various states, and it's not great. But
Whose is?
well,
Whose is great?
that's just it, right? I'm doing much better,
Good.
but one element of it is this idea that like because of some of the conditions I have, I don't have object permanence. And I especially struggle with emotional object permanence and this
Okay.
idea of like holding on to someone's love even when we're not seeing each other. And I think social media plays like it wreaks havoc on my nervous system because the fact that I can see people doing things, even if I haven't seen them in 15 years, even if I didn't really like them that much, they pop up on my feed. I
Yeah.
see them and I feel like a desire to be connected to them, right? And it puts
Oh.
this pressure and then this like almost shame on me for not being, them not inviting me to something or something
Yeah.
like that, right? And I think
I was in the beginning with social media. I was very much like, well, they all had a fucking party without me. Like
yeah.
that's how it felt.
Yep.
And then when you see further, like with the original post, now you can. It used to be just one post, right?
Mhm,
Now
mhm,
Instagram lets you put up 10 or 12 photos.
mhm.
And I would always go, "Oh man, I didn't get invited to the cool kids party." And
Yep.
then you flip through the pictures, and now you can flip through the pictures and go, "Oh fuck, I don't want to be at that party. That fucking asshole's there.
That's
I don't
just
want to be
it.
anywhere near that party. I like those two people. I like
Yep.
that person who posted, but I
Mhm.
do not like." Anybody, I don't want to spend any time with those other people in those photos.
Yep.
So
Yep.
now I'm like, I didn't miss anything.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's that thing too of like it's almost, I almost circle it back to this idea of like go with the third thought of like,
Yeah.
because I have that same thing where I'll see something and I'll have an initial thing and then I'll think about it and I'll have a similar, and then yeah, I almost inevitably fall, especially after like getting sober last fall and stuff like that. Like it's
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, why would I have ever wanted to be there anyway?
So I got sober in 2012. So I'm on,
Mm.
I think 2012, 2014, or 2012 or 2015, somewhere in there. Somewhere I'm keeping track.
It's been
I'm going to
some
say
time. Yeah.
2012. I
Yep.
think
Yep.
2012. So initially there was, I mean, that's part of a community. Part of the comedy community was you do a show and you do a show for a beer ticket, and you get a beer, and then you're like, or you get 2 beer tickets. You're like, well, I was going to have 2 anyway, and I have that money in my pocket. I might as well have 4 now.
Yep.
And then you're hammered.
Yep.
And I remember the very first few times that I was there just sipping on Diet Coke or ginger ale or whatever. And I was
Mhm.
like, part of me was, I want to be in the community, but I can't believe I have to sit here and listen to these drunk assholes circle talk around nothing. It's
Yep.
fucking stupid. And I
Yep.
would sit there and put myself through hell. And then there was just one night where I was like, I can't believe I have to sit here and listen to, oh, no, I don't.
Yeah.
No, I don't.
Just go
I'm
home.
bye. And you
Yeah.
just leave. And you
Yeah.
feel like $1,000,000 and you missed nothing.
Yep.
The drunk you hanging out with everybody, people would be like, what'd you do last night? Oh, you weren't there, you missed it.
Yep.
You missed nothing.
Nothing.
Not a goddamn thing.
Yep. Yep. That was, oh my god, that was such an eye opener. One of the first times I went out and was around like real drunk people and was completely sober, and just the way the conversation devolved and the way they became these like clipped, like everybody lost track of what was being said. And I if I was drunk, I'm sure I would have been right in there with it, thinking we're following some kind of logic. But by being removed from it, I was like, oh yeah, no, very nice to see you, but now that you're cross-eyed, bye.
And then you hit the line of, I don't even need to say goodbye.
Oh,
I got
exactly.
so good. I got so good at it. My friend Jim Taylor, God love him, he's from Winnipeg. He's in Chicago now.
Mm.
Jim Taylor we had always called it the French goodbye or the no talk walk. And by the time you realized Jim left, he'd been home for 45 minutes.
Yes.
And
Yep.
I was like, that's the goal. That's what I want to
Yeah.
get to. And I
Mhm.
would do a show. And even now, I'll do a show. I say, thanks. I had a good time. Hop in the car and I go home. Like,
Yep.
I don't even think about it now.
It's
I don't stick
beautiful.
around.
Yep.
I mean, if I want to stick around to talk to somebody for 5 minutes, I will talk to them for 5 minutes and then I'm gone.
Yeah.
Especially if it's somebody I hadn't seen in a while. I'm like, oh, it's reconnecting. They want to see pictures of the kid, whatever.
Yeah. So that follows into the sort of the other side of the question of the show is this idea of like what is community,
Yeah.
and these have been things that I realized, I started asking this question before I got sober, and I've realized in reflection I was asking these questions because I knew where I wasn't where I wanted to be, and I wasn't feeling like the community I had around me was the community I wanted. And so
Right.
now, I've basically like gutted my life. I've spent the fall, the spring kind of grieving that, and I'm now in a stage where I'm like, okay, now how do I rebuild this, right?
Not only rebuild it, but how do you make new friends?
Yeah, well, and that's just it. Like, how the
Yeah.
fuck do I, like, because there's so many facets to it. And the idea of somebody for so long that they know you, and it's like, well, now I'm starting at square zero. So how do I, all these things? But it really boils down to this concept of community, and it's another one of those words that we use so casually, and yet we never really stop to consider what it really entails.
No. And I think to go back to the company at York, the VCP people, like
Yeah,
where I came with John. And I mean, there's other comedians and actors and people that have come out of it too. But we can have a 50th anniversary reunion and all of us will come back. And I don't know anybody from the first 10 years
sure.
because I wasn't there, but I have met them at events like this. And then when I see them, they're like, and we're like instant friends. And it's because we've gone through this kind of, they weren't in the trenches with me, but we both went through the war. They went through a
Yes.
different part of the war than I did.
Yep.
And every show I've done, every musical or the stuff at Second City with that cast, those casts are my war buddies.
Yeah.
And I can count on them because we've been through war together, because we've
Mhm.
been in the trenches together and experienced the same, possibly similar if they weren't there with me, but we've been through it. And so
Mhm.
there was a shared understanding of the nonsense we've been through.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like good, bad, it's all there and we did it all.
Yeah.
And so when you run into them again, it all kind of flashes back and you go, that's my team. That's my
Yeah.
people. And they get me. That's my community.
Yeah.
So I'm lucky enough to have some stragglers from VCP come with me into the world of comedy and acting, where I'm like, they've been through two different kinds of wars with me,
Right.
and then I have that core group of 5 people that have been through every relationship with me that has failed up to this point,
Yeah.
and they know exactly what's going on. So
Yeah.
I remember when I met my wife and started introducing her to everybody, the guys and girls that have been with me the longest, they just were all like, "Yep, you're done. This is it.
Right?
You're
Yeah.
done." And I go, "Oh, good." Like, "Oh, good. You see that?" Like other times I'd introduce them to people I was
Yeah.
dating, and they'd be like, "Oh,
Yeah.
buddy,
Yeah.
what are you doing?"
Yeah.
And this time's like, "Oh no, you're done. You're good. You're
Yeah.
done." And I'm like, "Oh,
Yeah.
thank God I'm done. Thank
Yeah.
God I'm done."
Do you with the idea of like what a community entails, do you find that for you does community evoke like the word I keep coming back to in my brain is like the idea of safety. But I think that there's the nuance within that where it's like, is community something that like is a safe space, or is it that it's safe to be you while still being potentially uncomfortable, you
I
know?
think it's I think it's safety, but it's safety in you can be you because they understand you.
Yeah.
That they've been with you, they've
It's like
been through some stuff with you, and they know who you are. They get you.
yeah, it's not like an engulfment, right? It's not
No,
like
it's not. They're like,
yeah.
no, it's like, like I said, I meet somebody I did a play with a billion years ago, and immediately the entire run of that play comes back, the good, the bad, the horrible shit we went through,
Yeah.
whatever,
Yeah.
and then we have that moment of like, there's my guy, there's my
Yes.
girl,
Yeah.
that's how are you?
Yeah.
But then it's so funny. There's so many times where I re-meet somebody I haven't seen in 20 years, but we had that experience, and then it's how are you? And when inevitably what gushes out of your mouth is stuff you'd never fucking tell anybody because
Yeah.
this is just my person. They know because we've been through it together.
Yeah.
It's a safety to be yourself because they understand who you are. They
Mm.
watched you and they went through it with you, especially those York years where we were all still
Yeah.
trying to figure out who the fuck we were. We
Yes.
were going through it like we were trying to figure out who we were, and then going through play, which is a whole other thing, on top of the school, on top
Yeah.
of working at the bar, on top of going out at night, on top of trying to be social.
Mhm.
And it gets so crammed into such a small period of time. You
Yeah.
reminisce on those 4 years of university, but
Yeah.
really it's 4 years. Shit changes in 4 years, but
Oh,
you don't
yeah.
think about it like that. You think about it like, remember those great days
Well, and it
of
was especially when you think of like you go from, I had the week before I went to UVic, I had just turned 18. So you think of like the window of like 18 to 22, like sure, 4 or 5 years, but like holy fuck.
it's formative in a whole different
Mhm.
way.
Mhm.
You're also like somehow at the end of that 4 years, looking forward, you're like, oh, I have to be an adult at the
Yeah.
end of that.
Yeah.
Maybe you're not. But yeah, so
No.
these people go through it with you, but they understand you. And so it's not, it's safety, it's comfort to be yourself with these people. My
Yeah.
community, my Second City gang, some of the people I haven't seen in a long time, but you run into them at an improv show and you're like, oh, that guy gets me because they understand and I understand them,
Yeah.
and our lives are in completely different places
Mhm.
from where we were, but good because
Yeah.
we know where we came from. We have to celebrate that.
Yeah, it also circles me back to this thought of like, something I've been talking about in recent episodes is the idea of like the paradox of life, and this idea of like, in order to know other people, you have to first know yourself, and in order to connect to people, you actually have to disconnect. Like you have to know how to disconnect,
Yeah,
and it's this thing of like, to be in community, you almost have to be able to see the individual,
yeah.
like, and you have to be able to see them as the part that they are
And I
of the
don't
bigger whole.
community. When you say that word, it evokes this group of people who are all the same, and
That's why I
I
exactly.
don't think so. I think
No,
we're
they're
all
not.
different because that's what makes a good community. We all have different
Exactly.
points of view and we all have different opinions. And I don't go
It
to
becomes a
the
cult,
same.
you know?
Well, yeah, but I don't go to the same person with my problems.
Mhm,
With if
mhm.
I have a problem in this area, I don't go to that person. I know to talk to this person. This is another one that I love and I've
Okay.
used very much. I have a good friend who is a stand-up comic named Josh Gondelman. And Josh does a bit. He got married around the same time, just before I got married. And Josh's stand-up bit, it resonates with me quite a bit. So he said, when you when you marry somebody, they say you gain their friends.
Mm.
And you do, but no one tells you that you also gain their enemies. And you might not know who these people are, but because you want to keep the house safe and happy, you also have to hate the same people they hate.
Sure.
And so my joke is, my wife is she's a teacher. There are a lot of teachers in her board who I hate that I've never met and
Yeah.
never will, but they're the fucking worst,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Like if she comes home complaining about this fucking person, I'm like, you're right, dear, they're an asshole. And that's anything I need to know. So, do you have an enemy? James, does James have an enemy?
Wow. That's such a, you know what's funny? Okay. That puts me in again, great question, because it spiderwebs my brain, because I
Also,
was
because I need you to name names.
Oh, I'm never gonna do that. I'm never gonna do that.
Of course not.
I was married and got divorced a couple years ago, and I had the experience of of both you know becoming the enemy of people that I had never met, and then later on being like, why the fuck did I do that? Because of after the breakup, it was like, I don't know this person. I also inadvertently became enemies with people I didn't ever expect to because of the dissolution.
Right. Yes.
In terms of a personal internal enemy of like, if someone were to date me, they would have to hate this person. I think yes, but I'm reluctant to admit that, in the sense that I do try to live as peacefully as possible, and knowing
Yeah.
that is not actually how
It's
I
not possible.
enact, right? Exactly. And knowing that is like also like totally hypocritical, because there's people who, if I heard their name, I'd be like, fuck that guy, like
Yep.
no question. I think the reason I'm hesitant isn't because of some kind of high-minded, I'm so above it, but it's more like I would hope that my first impulse would be to recognize their humanity and recognize that people fuck up, and I would
Yeah.
rather give them the benefit of the doubt as best as I can.
Yep.
Now that being said, there are definitely people who it's the thing of, especially in thinking of like my divorce or breakups, it's I hold less animosity towards the person that I broke up with, and more around like the people who kind of like sided with them and kind of enabled them,
Cheered them on.
Yeah, those are the people
Yeah.
that I'm like, yeah, you can eat shit and die, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I had a relationship with somebody who I had been friendly with them for a long time, and I watched them go through relationship after relationship and just obliterate these guys,
Yep.
just ruin their lives.
Yep.
And then it was suddenly my turn,
Ah.
and naive me went, oh, it's going to work because I've seen it happen. I know what not to do. And then I'm in it and I'm not doing those things, and it's still happening.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
so when it blew up, she made sure to take all of my friends
Yeah.
to be her friends, wipe me off the planet,
Yep.
tell them whatever they needed to hear to make them wipe me off the planet.
Yep.
And I went, oh, I'm an idiot because
Yeah.
I saw this coming. And so one of the safest things I ever did was block them on everything. I just was like, there are other people who I've broken up with. We remained acquaintances, but I want this person for what they've done. They don't get to see anything from now on.
And that includes people who stayed connected,
Exactly.
and it doesn't even come out of, in so many ways, like, that doesn't for me come out of spite. That comes out of protection. That
Yes.
comes out of, essentially, it comes out of self-love, of like, I have to do everything I can to keep myself safe. So that means I have to not only get that person out, but I have to get their world out of my world,
And so in the process of that, there was a friend of mine who I'd been friends with for years who dropped me to side with them. 5 or 6 years down the road, I'm at a comedy show and I run into that person. And they went, hey, hi. And I was like, oh, hi. Like, I don't, you chose your side, cool. But you're approaching me, so this must be okay.
You're also still a person,
And then she said, hey, do we have time to talk? And I go, well, I'm about to do a show.
Yeah.
And she's like, could we go for a coffee or something and talk? And I go, absolutely. So I made arrangements. We went for a coffee, and I hear this unknown to me side of the entire part of it, where the lies that were told to
Yeah.
get people to side with her. At one point, she doubled down on something, and this friend of mine went, "Wait a minute,"
Yeah.
and called her out on it, and then everything fell apart. So they were apologetic. They were like, "Can we? Like, I miss you. Can we be friends? We're stronger friends than we've ever been."
Yeah.
But it was nice to hear I wasn't crazy. Like, at the time, it was like, I think I'm the only one who sees what's going on.
Yeah.
And
Because in a way you are, you know what I mean?
yeah,
Like, for the
yeah.
moment,
And
right?
but I mean, every story's got a middle, right?
That's
It's
just
not
it.
like
That's exactly. Oh, well, and that's the other part of it too, isn't it? Where it's like, it's not like, for me, it's not like I'm the innocent and, oh, I'm just a poor baby and just, oh, who, little
no,
old
no,
me. It's like,
no.
no,
I,
no,
I,
I,
hey, I
right?
contributed.
Exactly.
I
Right. Exactly.
contributed
Yeah.
because
100%.
I'm a helper.
Yeah.
But to be able to reconnect and then hear the stories of we didn't talk for 5 years, to hear the story of the missing 5 years
Yeah.
and what turned them around to make them go, oh, we were unfair to Nug or
Yeah.
whatever. It was nice to hear.
Mhm.
We've reconnected. It's tenuous,
Of
but
course.
it's working. It's
Yeah.
fine. And then every now and then a message comes in from the blue, like, I don't know how to get a hold of you, but I found this thing of yours at my house. And I'm like,
Yeah.
burn it.
Yeah.
Goodbye. Like,
Yeah.
I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't spend my time thinking about this person who
Yeah.
wrecked my then life.
Yeah.
And I
Well,
have this fabulous life now
yeah.
that I'm thrilled with that you don't get to know about.
Yeah. Well, isn't that
Living
just
well
it?
is the best revenge.
It
Living well
really
is great.
it really is, and it is, and that's something that, that's been a part of the grieving process for me in the the fall into the spring, is this idea of like, you know, it's the best way to move through something is to just move through it for yourself and to not be like,
Yep.
why won't these people hear me? Why won't they? Like, it doesn't matter. Like, because you can't control people. You can't
No,
make
they've
people,
made their choices.
Yeah. And they're not even, that doesn't make them bad people. It doesn't
Nope.
make them evil. It just
Nope.
means they're living their life. They've got their own problems. They probably don't
Yep.
give a fuck about either of you. They just don't care about they've got their own drama, like,
What's
so just
that?
leave it.
Seen that online video where the guy is trying to do an interview? It starts with him like, "Oh, I met this guy in the mall, and I'm just trying to do an interview." And the
Yes.
guy walks through the camera, and he goes, "That guy just walked through the shot like he didn't give a shit." And this other guy just like, "You probably didn't know. He's in his own world. Don't attribute to malice what you can attribute to ignorance or stupidity. He's got his own shit going on."
Yes.
And this guy's just blown away by it. And
Yeah.
I see that video comes up on my feed all the time, and I'm
Yeah.
like, this guy fucking gets it.
Nails it every time. Yeah.
Like when the amount of times when you feel that this stranger has fucked you, specifically you,
Yeah.
yeah, they're not thinking about you at
No.
all,
No.
dude.
Yeah.
Not at
There's
all.
the line, I mean, I know it's an old adage, but I remember it coming up in Saga, in the comic Saga, about don't
Well,
worry
a
about what
great comic. Everybody reads Saga. It's the
incredible.
best.
Best fucking comic. But early on, they use that sentence of like, don't worry about what other people are thinking about you, because they don't think about you.
They're not. You're
Right?
so. How many years have we spent of our lives,
Mhm.
especially our young lives,
Yes.
teens, 20s, worrying about what other people think of you?
Yeah.
And
It's
even now
paralyzing.
in auditions where like they want you to do two different takes, I'm like, they're gonna see what they like in the first take,
Yep.
or not.
Yep.
Like, who cares? But like what they think of me, I can only do what I think is best, and then it's what other people think of me.
Yep.
That's not my. I can't control it.
That's just it. I mean, and that's been a big part of my therapy recently, is just learning to live, like, to tolerate the ambiguity, to tolerate the uncertainty, and just like let
Yeah.
people, in essence, let people be wrong, because who fucking cares, right?
Well,
You
yeah,
you
and
know what's
also,
real.
and part of my thing, I was what the pandemic changed for me was I'm no longer a people person. I don't
Mm,
suffer small talk as well. Like I used to be able to bullshit small talk,
sure.
and now I just don't like. I don't have time for this.
Yep.
But for me, they can have their opinions of me. I don't want to hear them.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear from anybody.
Yeah.
Keep your fucking opinion to yourself.
Yeah.
Unless it's a good thing that I need to know that we need to do to change the way the world is,
Yes.
by all means tell me everything about it. But when you want to tell me what you thought about this third-rated actor in a movie that I'm still not going to see, fuck, I don't give a shit. Get off
Exactly.
your soapbox. Who gives
Yep.
a shit?
Yep. Yeah, no, I mean that's again, this is something that I am not, I will be the first to admit, I'm not actively doing every day, but I'm trying,
Yes,
I'm working on
yes.
it, and it's
It's like working out, James. It's
yeah,
working out a muscle. You
that's
just got to
just it.
practice. It's just until
Incremental.
you get it right.
Exactly, incrementalism. No, goddamn, we could talk for hours, and I really
Probably. Are we
appreciate
doing a
that.
part 2? Is that what you're saying?
You know what? I think we're gonna need to. We're gonna need to book you in again very soon because
For sure, man.
you're an absolute treat, and I feel really grateful that just through happenstance we cross paths.
You know, it was fun doing that code names with you, and you were
Yeah.
just like, "I watch you on the show. I'm a wrestling fan. I know exactly who you are." And then you were like, "I think I dropped RJ's name, or you
Yes.
mentioned
Yeah.
RJ,"
You
and I
brought
was
up
like,
RJ.
"Oh, you want him on your podcast? I'll give him a shout." And like
Yes.
before the night was over, I had already texted him. He's like, "Yeah, tell him to get a hold of me." He's like, "Great, yeah." And you were just like wide-eyed, mind boggled that
Yes.
occurred.
Yes, I still can't believe it, like it just like, and for you to be so nonchalant about it is just such another example of like, obviously I don't know you well, but it's like the person that I have met strikes me as like so incredibly generous and it's really magic.
Well, we're again, it's this thing with where I'm trying to help the wrestlers. Like
Mhm.
I find that where I'm not particularly skilled at getting myself booked as an actor,
Sure.
I find that I can help other people. I'm good at helping other people,
Mhm.
directing, editing. Like I saw a stand up do a joke once and I said, I love that joke. I don't know you.
Yeah.
I was like, I love that joke. Uh, if you made it, if you didn't just say the thing and just use the name of the thing, the specific name of the object you're talking about, rather than go grab the thing, it might hit better. I
Mm.
don't know. It depends how that thing rolls off the tongue in the middle of your joke. And
Yeah.
they were like, "Oh, wow."
Yeah.
And I was like, take it or leave it. I don't give like whatever. Who am
Yeah.
I? But
Yeah.
I'm saying when I heard that joke, I wanted to just rewrite one word of it and I thought it might work better. And then I ran into them 2 weeks later and they go, I tried it. It worked, but not enough people know the specific name. But I
Ah,
have changed it to be this so it's not as vague. And I was like, that's
there it is.
that's it.
Yeah.
And so it was like I rewrote, helped somebody rewrite something.
Yeah.
And so I find I'm good like that. Give me your, I'm not going to change your thing.
Yes.
And I tell that to the wrestlers. If you have a character, I'm not going to change it, but I
Yeah.
will help you make it better
Yeah.
or be able to communicate it better to people.
And people need that. People need that. Like it's like you say, it's not like we're gonna tear it all down. It's like we're just gonna take it to the next thing. Like
Yeah.
just one step.
Yeah. And so I doing $1 words, I'm getting a chance like where my old show was very insulated. We'd have guests and we'd improvise and then put out the show.
Yep.
This one I'm having people come in, I'm having conversations with them, much like you. We're playing a game while we're doing it. But when I'm doing other podcasts, and I'll say the same thing to you as I did this other podcaster I just did, and they were blown away that I would even offer. But it's like, go through the list of my podcast.
Yeah.
And if there's anybody on that list that you would love to have on your show, I will absolutely pass your name along because we all need guests on our show.
We do. We really do.
Right. And so it's like
Um.
we're all of us are working week to week, or if we're lucky, 2 weeks ahead so we can breathe. But
God,
usually it's
the
just week to
dream.
week. Right. And so it's like I'd love to have 4 shows in the can, but every week I'm like, oh fuck, who do I got this week? But if
Yep.
you see anybody on my list that I've done a show with, if you'd be like, I'd love to talk to them, absolutely I'll pass along their information.
Now, you're fucking magic. You're magic. You're a magic person. I just like.
Please.
I'm blown away. Um. My last question is I always like to leave listeners on a little bit of an actionable step,
Okay.
and so I'm curious if you have some kind of tip or advice of something listeners could try doing this week to be a better friend, either to themselves or to their community.
I've said a lot, and I say it a lot, that Instagram is everybody's greatest hits. They're not going to put
Mm.
on, not going to put shitty things that happen to them on Instagram. If you have somebody, it's so cliche to say check in on somebody, but go through, like if you've like, oh, I wonder how they're doing, go look at their posts. And if there are like vast expanses of time between posts, that
Mm.
means there's something going on. And
Mm.
it's a quick way for you to go, oh, I should give that person a shout.
Mhm.
Like I have a friend who's like, out. They were in the acting, in the comedy biz, and they're out, and they're like moving. They've moved like 4 jobs. They're getting higher up and higher up and higher up. And we barely text anymore because they're busy.
Mm-hmm.
But I will, when we had our kid, he sent me a message that was like, here's what you need to know. Here's
Yeah.
this is a pro tip from somebody who's done it, blah, 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 blah. And it was just wonderful to hear. And then I didn't talk to him again for a year
Of
or
course.
whatever it is, because
Yeah.
he's busy. He's a busy
Yeah.
man, and I don't want to bother him. But those people that you're like, not the people that maybe you run into them, but it's the greatest hits of Instagram that people celebrate their victories, but they
Mm-hmm.
do not talk about the shitty things that are happening.
Mm-hmm.
Check in on that person, man. Like, you see them at an improv show, they're like, hey, let's talk after. Sure. And they duck out because they
Yeah.
don't want to talk.
Yeah.
It's check in. And it's such a weird thing to say. Like, it's very cliche. Check in on your friends.
Yeah.
It's so bullshitty, but like, do a little work and go, oh, fuck, I hope they're okay. Hey, man, like, let's go grab a coffee. And I
Mm-hmm.
mean, don't be like me and Katucci. We talk every day about, like, we send each other food shit on Instagram. Like, we got to go get a sandwich at this place. And we never fucking do it. We never fucking do it. So we're gonna fucking do it at
Yeah.
some point.
Yeah. Maybe
But
that's the
like,
other side of it, is to actually follow through,
yeah,
right?
following through is
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Make a plan and follow through. But
Yeah.
like, call your friend, check in on them, shoot them a text and go, hey, dude, like, I got half an hour tomorrow. You want to go grab a coffee?
Yeah.
Whatever it is.
I
Like,
love it.
we keep bringing up RJ, but RJ's life is airplane, hotel, arena, airplane,
Mm-hmm.
hotel, arena. And then he comes home to do laundry,
Yeah.
and then turn around and get on another plane. But in those 2 days when he's home, he doesn't live too far from me. And
Yeah.
we text absolute nonsense to each other all week. But then it'll be like, are you home this weekend or not? He's like, I'm home for like a day. And I'm like, do you want to go get a coffee while you're home? He's like, absolutely. Like, I'd love to. And just
Yeah.
give him a chance to decompress and
Yeah.
tell somebody else all about. I mean, everybody hates their job, right?
Sure.
So, like, no matter what it is, but just a chance to like call your friend and say, hey, I got a half an hour. Like, tell me what's going on. That's all
Yeah.
it is. Check in and actually do the thing.
And the other, and that too, the idea of like the half hour, like it doesn't have to be like
It's a
the
half an
whole
hour.
afternoon. It doesn't have to be,
Oh,
right? Like it can
by
be
the
just
way,
a
it can
little,
turn into a whole afternoon.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
start with a half an hour.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love that. It's funny. I always frame that question around like for other listeners, but I more often than not, it's for my own, like, what could I try doing? And I think
Yeah,
that's another one I'm gonna give a shot
it's
to.
only half an hour, man.
Yeah. Yeah. I
And then
love it.
if that's the thing about half an hour is like, if it's great,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to feel like that half an hour flies by and maybe you want to do another half an hour or even longer.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's fucking like a rake on a chalkboard,
Yeah, it's
it's
over.
only half an hour.
Exactly. Exactly.
So
Yeah. Yeah. So where can listeners find you? Like where would you
oh
like to direct people?
I'm on most of the socials as at Nug Nahrgang. You can tune into the podcast, $1 words. I'll get James on it so he can be very anxious about the words he gets. Uh,
Yes.
we do just an interview, much like this, but my interview guest and I will both get lists of 5 words. And if you make me say any of the words on your list during the interview, you get $1 for every word. But I also have my own list, so I will get $1 back for every word.
Yeah.
So the best I've ever done was a 5-0.
Oh.
But which was because I got to 4 and my brain went, we got to try and get 5.
Yeah.
And it was hard, but I did it. But it's fun. I talked to, like, I've had Colin Mockery on. I've had Ann Pornell from the Great Canadian Baking Show.
Fuck yeah.
I just had Erica Kesapanen, who won Survivor,
Oh,
the
amazing.
Canadian girl that won Survivor.
Yeah.
And then I have like just my friends from the comedy community that I've done stuff with for years. I had Will Sasso on. Will's the best. He's an
Oh,
absolute sweetheart.
he's a hero of mine. I
He's
adore Will
great. He's just
Sasso.
a great
Yeah.
dude. Just a great
Yeah.
dude. And so we have a lot of fun conversations,
Yeah.
and just, everybody gets mad at the end when you find out what the words were, and you're like, fuck, I owe you $1. Like, a lot of, and just like low stakes, but
Yeah.
fun.
That sounds incredible. I mean, I would love to be a guest, but I also like
James,
can't
sign
wait
up.
to listen. Yeah, I
Let's do
absolutely
it.
will. Yeah.
I had a really good one with Mark Andrada this week, because we're such old friends, and then we told stories about shows we were in and
Yeah.
tried to like make each other say words, and then we just kept talking for so long that I was like, I guess part of this is going to be a hidden track after the credits. credits, it's
Right.
going to be 20 minutes of us talking about this bullshit. And I put it on, and my brother, who listens to every episode, he was like, that's my favorite thing that's ever happened on the show. And I'm like, oh, great.
Yeah.
I'll do more of that.
Fuck yeah. Well, all that is going to be in the links. The links to your Instagram will be in there.
Yeah.
Links to the podcast will be in there. Go check it out. Nug, one more time, like, just thank you. Like, I genuinely feel like really blessed to have encountered you. And I just think
Oh
you're an
man, no, it
incredible
was
person.
great. It was
Yeah.
so nice to see you and Meg at the Codenames thing,
Yeah.
and we had such a good time because everybody sucked at it. It was like
Yes.
just very and that audience like wants us back,
Yes.
which is funny. Like I want to watch these 4 people entertainingly tank this game. Um, and it's such a fun thing to do, and you just meet fun people. And I hadn't
Yeah.
seen Meg in ages, so it was like
Yeah.
just so cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, like absolutely,
Yeah.
anytime, James,
Yeah.
anytime. We'll do that half-hour thing. We'll go get a beverage or a
Right.
coffee, a hot coffee.
Well, I mean, I am in Vancouver, so it might be tough, but it'll be a real.
I can come out for half an hour.
We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out.
We'll
Yep.
make it. It'll happen. It'll happen.
And that's it. Thank you one more time to Nug for coming on the show. What an absolute pleasure it was to chat with him, hear all his stories. As soon as we finished recording this, we kept talking for another almost hour. Nug just shared all these incredible stories about wrestling with me that I could have listened to for literal days. So I feel so lucky to have met him, to have chatted with him, and I'm really excited to hopefully have him back on again soon. If you like the show, please be sure to give it a 5-star review wherever you listen. It helps me out so much, and it's completely free for you. Normally, I would plug the Substack here and all the other kind of Friendless goodies, but as I mentioned in the last episode, I am taking a July hiatus from everything, so you're still welcome to sign up. The links will be in the show notes. There's just not going to be any new content for the next couple weeks. My plan to kind of revamp everything, start adding that kind of subscription tier, it is still in the works. It just has been delayed, and I realized that I hit a massive energy wall that I needed to address before launching into new projects. So, so I don't really have much else to say other than thank you, and I just think you are wonderful. Whoever you are, you deserve the best, and don't let anybody tell you otherwise. So thank you for listening. I will be back next week with one more interview before this season wraps up, so I hope to catch you there. But I'm not going to worry about that right now, and neither should you, because that is then, and this is now. So for now, I'll just say I love you, and I hope you have a great week. Fun and safety, sweeties.